Welcome to this session of Hatch Market Update, where we'll be discussing anything about digital commerce or omnichannel. Today we will be talking about what to expect in the coming period with regards to digital commerce based on our data and insights. I'm Mark Cassette, Head of Marketing at Hatch, and today with me is Joris Kroese, CEO and founder of Hatch. I don't think the current situation in the market needs any additional explanation with regards to COVID-19. It's been on the top of every news article that you can pretty much read these days. But one thing is clear, it's going to have, and it has already had, a huge economic impact, especially brick and mortar retail stores have been hit very hard. Thankfully, a lot of governments are easing their rules and regulations with regards to opening hours and so on. This is giving a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and is opening up a new phase in this entire saga, I would almost call it. It does lead to the question that is on the lips of every marketeer or sales professional these days. After this, how do we move on? So what do you see is happening in the market at the moment, Joris?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Not so exciting times indeed. But I think in general, what we see is a dramatic shift in buying behavior. Consumers and large user groups, market segments who didn't previously order online, moving to digital commerce. And in many countries, well, actually, you see it with the brands, with the consumers, and with the retailers, is that they're rapidly changing their behavior. And most companies actually are pretty agile. So actually, it surprises me the flexibility they have to cope with this landslide in shopping behavior. We hear from a lot of brands actually that the overall sales has not even been impacted so much, and in some categories actually we see growth despite the crisis. But mainly it's a shift from physical to digital.
That's actually quite amazing if you expect, with all the dramatic stories that you do hear impacting certain areas. So what you're actually saying is that consumer behavior didn't change, or is that a wrong assumption?
No, the consumer behavior changed a lot, but what surprises me is the agility again from brands and retailers to also respond to this change in buying behavior. And also, of course, with the whole restrictions that have been put in place by the government that requires large amount of flexibility from brands, retailers, workers, people working from home. But I think quite fast it became the new normal. I think we'll be pretty good coping with the situation as it moves forward.
So how do you think the consumer behavior did change then?
The consumer behavior, as I mentioned, changed in a way that people use commerce channels, digital channels much more. Yeah. So having their groceries delivered at home, having their other supplies delivered at home. That's the main.
And you think that's gonna continue going on with regards to consumer behavior?
Yeah, I think it's a normal trend, and I think it was a trend which was already set in motion, right? As we saw growth for digital channels, but just slowly and gradually, and more people got adopted. Of course, the youth also drove that, so it's automatically by age group that this adoption takes place. I think there's just been a huge acceleration in the process driven by this COVID impact, but a lot of that change I think will be lasting.
Okay.
So
and how were, because you talk about flexibility of a lot of brands, how have brands, and maybe you've got a couple of good examples, how have they shown this form of flexibility? How have they changed, if at all?
I think just coping with the surge in demand in the first place, that flexibility, because imagine the impact it has on your logistics process, warehousing, supplies, etc. Normally, I don't know, if you think about peak shopping seasons around Christmas, New Year, people hire a lot of additional staff and prepare their warehouses and have their logistics in place. And now I think in many categories we see higher peaks even than during this shopping season without such preparations, without massive disruptions. And as I said, where the online sales almost balance out the loss in physical sales. So that almost overnight compensated and took over, and that requires a lot of agility.
That's an interesting question, because one of the questions we do receive from people as well is, how do we look at traditional retail versus e-commerce at this moment? I think you already said this was a change that was already coming, but at the same time, it was sped up by this entire situation that we were all in, and also looking toward the future. Is there still a future for the traditional retail compared to, for example, e-commerce? And what should brands focus on the long term?
Well, I think the same kind of applies, that this trend of becoming omni-channel. So as a retailer, it means having both your online and your physical tools in place, including a good commerce strategy, and backend and operations and everything. So that was already becoming more important. I think the retailers who lacked that are struggling, or were struggling, and were perhaps already doomed to fail perhaps in the longer run. And I think this COVID situation accelerated again the process, and the retailers who basically don't have it well thought out and implemented. They pay the price.
Have our time.
Last week, JCPenney's announced filing for bankruptcy. I think it's a retailer that's been on decline for years in a row, with a shrinking market size, shrinking revenue volume, and lack of a clear strategy.
It sort of reminds me of the, I think it was a meme or a cartoon that our regional sales director, Joost, had shared with us about the whole wrecking ball that was called COVID-19 coming and swinging into the building of the company that was still trying to figure out, saying how are we going to enable digital transformation? I think that really captures how this situation pretty much either it will break you or it actually moves you in a certain direction. So that's definitely interesting. So when we're talking about omni-channel, right? Omni-channel is a very broad concept, just same as digital transformation, which is, I think these were buzzwords. We do cover them in our trends of 2020. Are they still valid, yes or no? What do these words mean to you, digital transformation, omni-channel? Do you think they're still buzzwords, or do you think they change from buzzwords into overnight reality for a lot of businesses?
Well, I think new sales channels emerge daily, right? We've
social.
I mean, digital commerce is well established meanwhile, and that's just mainstream. But there's also new sales channels emerging. Marketplaces have, of course, found their way. Voice commerce, many people have high expectations from it. So there's new sales channels, and there's social commerce through Instagram, Pinterest, all experimenting with commerce capabilities on their platforms. So there's social commerce, and disruptions go so fast nowadays. Entire markets can be overthrown by a new disruptor within no time. So I think omni-channel is acknowledging the existence of those channels, and basically playing on all fields to closely follow trends, and again be agile in a way that you can scale things up that work well and perform well, and at the same time you're not dependent on things that perhaps lose in popularity rapidly. So if you perform agility there, you're adaptable and flexible, and you embrace all these different channels, and also there's a seamless customer experience between them. So from a customer perspective, there's a seamless experience from the site to the in-store experience to your mobile app to personalized data, etc. That seamless experience is across channels is for me what's omni-channel.
Yeah.
And the path to get there and to transform, that's basically the digital transformation
process. Yeah. Do you think digital transformation and omnichannel is something that all businesses need to look into? Do you think that there are differences in sector? I can imagine if you're selling private yachts or if you're selling private jets, I can imagine that's a different kind of cup of tea. But looking into any brands selling to consumers, do you think there's any scenarios where they should not focus on digital transformation, just stick to their old way of doing things? Or
well, there's many of course services and products that you buy which are by nature not default, but in the purchase process, I think consumers don't really shy away from any kind of purchase online. If you look at Tesla with cars over $100,000, selling them without even being launched yet, let alone making a test drive in it, or they don't even have showrooms. They prove out of nowhere that the assumption from all other brands to have this dealer network and showrooms is false. And so I think maybe for like houses and buying stuff like that, there are select things that you really want to see. But on the other hand, you also buy them off the plan, off the paper. Yeah. So I think any consumer journey can be entirely digital for
digitized,
any product group.
Yeah, so pretty much we're saying, consumers now have a certain way of buying products. They're getting used to it. Yeah. They're shifting as well in terms of their behavior. We're seeing flexible companies really adjusting and applying what they've learned through their entire processes to be able to accomplish this omni-channel. Yeah. And then comes the question of how do you do it, right? And that comes very close to the products and solutions that we also offer, but also other solutions are out there. If you would have to say where to buy, so that would be incorporating your indirect channel into your direct channel or your digital touch points, would you say that is a capability, a feature, or would you say, no, that's actually a strategy, that's a strategic call to make to do that? How would you describe that?
I think the decision to play on all fields is a strategic one. Yeah. So the decision to embrace all sales channels and to acknowledge that the customer buying journey doesn't follow a predefined route. Mm-hmm. But one has other preferences as the other. And indeed, what we do with Hatch, we're sitting on this strategy for a bit longer already. So we've got a suite of products and solutions that we help brands with to either perhaps be listed on the marketplace or even have a marketplace on your own website and showing multiple retailers to just implement online retail purchases, or to have local store demand from your website. So all those different, and we're busy with social commerce as well. Yeah. So we've got all these solutions available almost off the shelf. So brands who do make this conscious decision of following that omni-channel path.
Just a sidestep here for anybody who doesn't really know what Where to Buy technology is, be sure to check out our website. But shortly said, it's being able to enable retailers on your platform, on your website, to be able to sell your indirect through your indirect channel as well. But we can follow up on more of that in one of our other videos. So Joris, if you would give an advice to brands at this moment that might be struggling or actually might want to capitalize as well on this change in trend and change in behavior, what advice would you give on the short term? What would a brand need to do on the relative short term to still make 2020 a successful year?
Well, I think that many of the changes caused by the lockdown and the restrictions are permanent. So I would maybe consider divesting into certain areas which are going to stay impacted, and then perhaps shift budgets to accelerate this digital transformation. Indeed,
Yeah.
and I think the ones that succeed here will perhaps emerge from this crisis stronger.
Yeah.
Whereas the others might have to fear for their existence. So I think the execution, and it's hard when you have I don't know, 20, 40, 50 years old company with a DNA and a culture and a way of working and politics,
securities,
existing processes to change all that. But I think that what separates the winners from the losers.
Yeah.
Well, of course there are middle ways, or doing things half, or doing things slowly, etc. But that's already a trend. What was happening now, and I think the whole COVID situation is just putting a magnifier on this, and forces us to move faster and do things at a much faster pace. And again, the ones that understand this and then make such changes, I think are the ones that will emerge stronger. So is there a middle ground? Yeah, there is. But of course, I represent Hatch. So, but at Hatch we offer off-the-shelf turnkey solutions where we have an established global retail network. We have got store locations. We've got systems and solutions reporting. Everything's in place, and we're a SaaS company. So it means you pay us a fixed fee, and we run the service on your website.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you decide to move in that direction, then we can almost deliver these kind of capabilities overnight, and allow and help brands to make a swift change.
Yeah.
So that is amongst the things that you could do immediately. But otherwise,
That's something we can help with in any case, right?
yeah,
So
that's what we
for
can
sure.
help with. Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you for watching. If you're interested and want to know more, take a look at our website, gethatch.com. We'll be sure that we have many videos up there, also interesting case studies and other content that might be interesting for you. And in any other case, feel free to reach out, and we'll be sure to help you along. Thank you very much.